The night my marriage ended didn't start with a text message or lipstick on a collar. It started with a stranger looking at me in the rearview mirror and asking one simple question. Hey, isn't that your wife? I laughed. No, my wife is working a late shift tonight. The driver slowed the car just enough to point across the street. Then she has a twin. I turned my head. My stomach dropped. There she was, Emily, standing outside a small Italian restaurant I'd never heard her mention. She wasn't alone. She was laughing, really laughing. The kind of laugh I hadn't heard at home in months. The man beside her reached over and tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. She didn't move away. She smiled. Then she took his hand. I couldn't breathe. Sir, the Uber driver asked quietly, do you still want to go to the airport? I stared through the window. My flight suddenly didn't matter. Nothing did. No, I whispered. Just park here. I paid him, stepped onto the sidewalk, and watched from across the street. I kept telling myself there had to be an explanation. A coworker, a client, her cousin, anything. Then the waiter walked over, holding a small chocolate cake. A candle burned in the middle. The entire restaurant began clapping. The man stood up, leaned in, and kissed my wife. Right there, in front of everyone. I felt something inside me go completely silent. Not anger, not sadness, just silence. I should have walked inside. I should have confronted them. Instead, I pulled out my phone. I took exactly one picture. Then I turned around and walked away. I didn't move for a long time, just stood there on the sidewalk, watching through the glass like I wasn't even part of my own life anymore. Inside the restaurant, everything looked normal. People laughing, glasses clinking, that soft, warm glow of a place where nothing is falling apart, except my world was. The man leaned in again and said something to Emily. She laughed. That same laugh. It used to be mine. I realized something strange in that moment. I wasn't surprised. Not really. There's a difference between shock and confirmation. This felt like confirmation. My phone buzzed in my hand. A message from Emily. Working late tonight. Don't wait up. I looked up at the window, then back at the message, then back at her. Same night, same woman, same lie. I didn't reply. Instead, I took a step back, then another, and then I did something I didn't expect from myself. I walked into the restaurant. The bell above the door rang. Everyone turned, including her. Emily's smile faded the second she saw me. Not fear, not panic, just recognition, like she knew this moment would come eventually. Mark, she said. Her voice was calm, too calm. The man beside her stood up. Everything okay? He asked. I didn't look at him. I kept my eyes on her. Working late? I said quietly. She blinked once, then smiled again, but smaller this time. It's not what you think. I almost laughed, because of course she said that. That sentence should honestly be printed on every broken marriage certificate. I nodded slowly. Okay, then explain it. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. For the first time, she didn't have a quick answer. The silence stretched. The waiter still holding the birthday cake didn't know what to do, so he just stood there like part of a frozen scene. Finally, the man spoke. Look, man. I cut him off. No, don't. He stopped. I looked at him properly for the first time. He was younger than me, confident, relaxed. The kind of guy who doesn't think about consequences because he's never had to. I just met her a few weeks ago, he said. I didn't know she was married. Emily's eyes dropped immediately. That's when I knew. He was telling the truth, and she wasn't. I turned back to her. Weeks? I asked. Her silence answered for her. Something inside me shifted. Not loud, not dramatic, just final. I pulled out my phone, opened the photo I took from outside, placed it on the table. You look happy, I said. Her face went pale when she saw it, because in that picture, she wasn't just laughing, she looked like someone I had never met before. Not my wife, just a woman who had already left me. Emotionally, even if not legally. I was going to tell you, she whispered. I nodded again, strangely calm now. Yeah, at some point, right? No answer. I pushed the phone slightly forward. You don't need to explain everything, I said. I think I understand enough. Then I looked at the man. No hard feelings. You didn't know. He nodded slowly, relieved but uncomfortable, because he finally understood he was standing inside something real, something broken. I turned back to Emily, and that's when my voice finally changed. Not angry, not loud, just tired. I'm not going to beg you to come home, I said. She flinched slightly at that word. Home. I just want to know one thing. She swallowed. What? I paused, because this was the question that actually mattered. Not who he was, not how long, not even why. Just this. Was I ever the person you wanted, or just the person you settled for? Her eyes filled immediately, and in that moment, I already knew the answer. She didn't answer right away, and that silence, it said everything louder than words ever could. Her fingers tightened around the edge of the table. The man beside her slowly sat back down, like he suddenly realized this wasn't his story anymore. It was ours. Emily finally spoke, but her voice was barely above a whisper. I didn't plan for it to happen like this. I nodded. That's not what I asked. She looked up at me, and for the first time all night, she didn't look confident. She looked human, tired, confused, lost in something she had built and couldn't control anymore. I love you, she said quickly, too quickly, like she was trying to fix the moment before it collapsed completely. But I just stood there, waiting, because love isn't the question. Not right now. I know you do, I said quietly. Then I shook my head. But that wasn't my question. Her eyes filled again, and this time she didn't fight it. I was unhappy, she admitted. I let out a slow breath. Unhappy. That word. So small, so convenient, so late. Were you unhappy with me? I asked. She hesitated. That hesitation answered again. Not fully, but enough. I reached into my pocket and placed my house key on the table, right next to the photo. The sound was small, but it felt final. I'm not going to yell, I said. I'm not going to make a scene. I looked at the man, then back at her. I think life already did that for me. Emily stood up. Please don't do this, she said. Her voice cracked now. Finally cracked. But I had already moved past that point. There's a moment in every ending where emotion stops being useful. This was that moment. I already did, I said. A pause, then I added, the moment you decided not to come home and tell me the truth? That hit her. Hard, because there was no argument for that. No excuse strong enough. Just consequences sitting quietly in a restaurant full of strangers. I stepped back. The waiter slowly placed the untouched cake on a nearby table. No one clapped now. No one spoke. I looked at her one last time. Not to remember her, but to accept her, and maybe to release her. Take care of yourself, Emily, I said. She shook her head slightly, like she still couldn't believe it was happening, but I turned away before she could say anything else. Because if I stayed one more second, I might have stayed forever in a version of a life that was already gone. I walked out of the restaurant. The night air felt colder than before, or maybe I just felt it more. I didn't cry. Not then, not immediately. I just stood outside, looking at nothing in particular. My phone buzzed again, her name on the screen. I didn't open the message. Instead, I deleted the thread. Then I did something I never thought I would do so calmly. I blocked her number, and for the first time in a long time, there was no noise in my head, just silence, clean, empty, free. I walked down the street not knowing where I was going, and strangely, I didn't need to, because sometimes the end of a story isn't dramatic. It doesn't explode, it just stops. And you realize the hardest part wasn't losing someone, it was finally accepting that you already had.